Hi, I pressed stop on the video recorder, on the screen recorder instead of the YouTube video. I'll read you so this is part two. Welcome to part two. If you haven't watched part one, then watch fucking part one, obviously, otherwise this won't make any sense to you. So yeah, I was just showing you that YouTube video. I'll read you the write-up that I did about that YouTube video, because I'm pretty sure it's my brother. He fervently denies it, and yeah, so there's a link at the bottom to a live Facebook post I shared using my Samsung Galaxy S6 from Market Close, Buckfastleigh, Devon on the evening of the 14th of May 2019. There's a couple of short, sharp yelps discernible in the background. Disturbingly loud screams and cries for help have been audible for about 10 minutes by the point I went live in an attempt to evidence what was happening. I'm fairly certain the noises were sounds of a serious assault taking place. From just the video, of course, this isn't self-evident, but with broader heuristic analysis of the situation, it's a permissible hypothesis. There's a considerable amount of supporting evidence in this Google Drive folder named Connor 2019, which I'd started to compile and had shared links to online in the weeks preceding this incident. The shrieking was emanating from the corner of Market Close near to a wooded area which the River Mardle passes through. It's directly next to a children's park, visible in pale blue at the top left in the Google Maps satellite image. The video was mirrored by Facebook, so the buildings appear as such. The property Connor and I lived in with our mother Alethea McLeod from around 1998 is unfortunately some reason listed by Google as being numbers 16 and 17. Our home was situated in the middle of that three-house block, contrary to Google Maps, which consists of number 11, 12 and 14 in this order. So on the bottom right, there was no number 13 on the close. I've put a link to this document. You can only just see those numbers there. But our house was right here where it says 17, in between 16 and 17. That's a three-house block there on Google Maps images, and the noise was coming from over here next to the kids' park. It was really loud. Not a single person said anything. Like, nobody in any of the surrounding houses came out or like twitched their curtains or initially, the sound of distress were more masculine and characteristically recognisable as being Connor. Would have most certainly been clearly audible to anyone within around 100 metres, perhaps more given the topography of the area. It was so loud I almost thought it might have been being amplified or passed through an old-fashioned hailer. After around 5 minutes, of sounds of distress became far more shrill, as if the pain had intensified and the person's vocal cords had become stressed. Where wails were consistent and repetitive, echoing the small cul-de-sac every 3 to 4 seconds or so. I've never heard anything quite so harrowing in my life. It became imminently apparent to me that this was a trap, with the sounds of assault being used to lure me towards a secluded location to facilitate a sabotage. My half-brother on my mother Alethea McLeod's side, Connor R.J. McLeod, and my half-sister on my father Diorsa William John McLeod's my side, Lily Rose Beatrice Allen, and I have been abused by child sex traffickers local to Buckfastleigh in South Devon for decades. There's also been acts of terrorism involving arms, explosives and other organised crime committed by the same network operating predominantly in South Devon and South West England. The abuse we've suffered has taken place at various properties on Market Close. As you may expect, the perpetrators are very surreptitious regarding the network of criminals involved and the nature of their actions. They would simply never permit a scene like this to occur in such a blatant fashion, or for it to draw attention to the area from the emergency services, especially for an extended period like this, were it not by design. This is one of various reasons it seemed logical to me that this was happening expressly in order to gain my attention and draw me away from the security of 12 Market Close. This is in addition to the fact it was recognisably my brother Connor. Had the disturbance been the product of an unplanned or unexpected incident, there would have been scores of people already out in the street, looking out of their windows and gathering outside. Such was the magnitude of the audible suffering. This was very clear somebody in a great deal of pain, making an awful lot of noise, but not a single person had a door or window open or appeared to be showing any kind of concern or interest. I tried to remain calm. I thought it best not to go rushing out into the night in the direction of the noise, as I was fairly adamant someone was banking on me doing so as soon as I heard my brother crying out for help, in the hope that it would then stop. Almost every resident of Market Close has witnessed or in some way been affected by the nefarious and revolting atrocities committed since we first moved to number 12 just before the millennium. The ominous absence of anyone paying any attention felt incredibly eerie as the ordeal went on, and I sat in my lounge with the windows open, peering out every so often. Our mother died in suspicious circumstances in 2014, and Connor moved to Bristol in 2016, so I lived alone at number 12. It had quickly become plainly obvious this cruel stunt was aimed solely at me. Had I followed the directions of the source of the cries for help, I would have been vulnerable and would, I feel, likely have suffered an attack. At the time, luring me into a trap outside was preferential to attempting to neutralise the incriminating evidence I possessed by attacking 12 Market Close. The comprehensive HD infrared CCTV inside and outside and the reinforced double locks I'd fitted to all the UPVC doors and windows made attacking the house unnoticed fairly challenging. I had full 4G reception in every room using a 3 UK SIM and always purchased infinite mobile data so I could quickly upload evidence of any potential intrusion or attack. A significant portion of the evidence I possessed was related to sophisticated cybercrime, specifically involving the phone I was using, so the guilty parties were well aware of this. I was in good shape at this point and had various items I could have appropriated as weapons to defend myself, like baseball bats, knives, tools, etc. at the property too. Essentially, there were parties with a motive to damage me at the time, but they didn't want to appear as though I'd been maliciously harmed. Even if potential assailants were unable to be identified and had been successful attacking my home, there would be, at this specific point in time, a significant link to those with a grievance against me at a local police constabulary, Devon and Cornwall Police, who not only would have stood to be dismissed and prosecuted based on incontrovertible proof I'd obtained, but also been the subject of a nationwide scandal, if it was Lily Allen at my door. Had my home been targeted successfully, regardless of the outcome, there would have been an impetus to identify everyone with a motive to damage me, which would in all likelihood have led to the perpetrators of this incident. The evidence I possessed would have received widespread coverage from the national press and global news media and would have had a seriously damaging impact on the public perception of the regional police force had it received the attention it deserved. A considerable amount of related content has been published online and viewed by many people. It would have provided a highly viable motive had it been considered, presented or exhibited as the subject of an inquest into any incident related to any demonstrable attack against my person or the property. So even the prospect of erasing or destroying what was at this point I carried around in my rucksack wherever I went would have brought my recent publications further into focus. Had somebody broken into my house and smashed my laptops, hard drives and phones, for instance, whoever orchestrated this serious assault momentarily audible in the clip bears around a 90% probability to have been associated with those who I'd recently caught red-handed. To say what I'd recently obtained was controversial is an understatement. Water damage. The extraordinarily loud, persistent screaming culminating from a secluded wooded area with a river passing through it is also worth noting. Had I or my electronic equipment containing valuable evidence which could have jailed multiple people for lengthy terms been found near the River Mardle, then the devices having suffered water damage could have been foisted as the reason for their destruction, as opposed to malicious party indicted by content contained within them. If a party wished to destroy evidence incriminating them, it's logical to assume that they may choose to execute this in such a way so as to make it appear that they hadn't. Water damage is one of the most common causes of accidental terminal damage to mobile phones and laptops. Last seen looking troubled, drawing me out of the property suddenly, likely at pace, whilst appearing to be distressed, upset, uneasy or anxious, would, had I not made it back home in one piece, been workable to suit a fabricated assumption of self-harm or misadventure, as the Florion CCTV cameras don't record audio. So I would have just been running out the door, like looking like I'm pacing around the house, shitting myself, running out the door and never come back, you know. False testimonies from colluding neighbours could have discounted the visceral suffering audible outside as having never happened at all, therefore preventing a causal association to the perpetrators of the assault or the ambush. This may seem like a tenuous hypothesis if the sounds of agony were as I've described them to be, and as you can hear briefly in the clip, so terrible and so loud that they were audible to everyone nearby. It was the kind of thing that would have had children in tears and animals up all night. To suggest it'd be possible to enlist enough compliant accomplices to censor a horrific assault in public might seem crass. However, if you understood the scale of the institutional child abuse and other crimes in the small town and how entrenched into the local community it had been for the last 25 years, it's not quite so unrealistic. And so the possibility of the CCTV footage could have been left intact to correlate with a retrospectively provided alibi isn't negligible. Although impossible to ignore, what happened has never been reported or mentioned by anyone, and the perpetrators haven't been brought to justice. If nobody said or did anything about such a blatant and horrific scene, it could be because they knew what was happening. If one presumes neighbours knew what was happening was torture and so didn't say or do anything, then postulating they may have also have issued a blanket denial when questioned about the incident to the effect that nothing had happened at all is perfectly rational. Therefore, me being recorded leaving supports conclusions of both serious assault and a subsequent associated planned ambush retrospectively. For instance, without the CCTV, Mr. McLeod was found with a belly full of drugs face down in a river 75 metres away from his house after appearing to have caught the police red-handed committing a serious crime. However, evidence against the police was destroyed in the water. A local person claims he provided the drugs to the man. It's like a hypothesis, sort of a false comparison, as if they weren't targeting 8 out of 10 people with or without CCTV. And I did have it, but I'm using the contrast to, you can read the rest of this. It's in the Google Drive folder. So basically what they did is they replaced the files. So I was sectioned after that on the 14th of May. I tried to, it's one of the only times I've tried to get sectioned because I was so terrified. The police were trying to kill me, and they initially said no, and then I self-harmed in the hospital because I thought I was fucked, and then and I kind of was, and then I was sectioned, and at the end of the section in 2019, where there was low medical legal scrutiny, I went to Signet Darlington, then I was taken to Signet Taunton, then I was taken to Signet Haytor Ward, and then they just turfed me out and said, "You're informal, we haven't got a bed for you anymore, you've got a home to go to, see you in a bit." My brother he did a visit to the house, and I'd stashed a copy of this file with the woman with red hair on March the 19th and March the 20th. I had a bunch of USB sticks and hard drives I hid underneath the mattress sheet in my room. And when I was on the phone to him, I told him to gather them all up. I think he was being watched while he was doing that, but they weren't aware that I had any other copies of this file. And I plugged it in to my Samsung Galaxy S6 with one of these, not a USB-C OTG, but an OTG adapter, so you can put a USB into your phone. And I sat there in my room in Haytor Ward, and I watched the file on my S6 with the girl with red hair, and I woke up in the morning and it was gone. No word of a lie, gospel truth. So before, there was this crying lady, looked a lot like my sister, stood on my doorstep in a full police uniform. And then after that, there was these two other videos. I think what they'd done is they'd gone to my house, changed the date on the CCTV and the time on the CCTV, and then made a mock-up where PC Dudley came to deliver a letter, which was an unimportant letter that said nothing, which he decided to hand deliver. That was, so there was 5 trips to my house in total. The first 2 was an excuse of a PSD complaint about that camera getting ripped off the wall, which they hadn't done anything about. And it's, they just stick it in the post, you know what I mean? They said the postal deliveries had been stopped to my home. I think he says that in his, to play devil's advocate, but they would have still stuck it in the post. They don't, it's not like you would just hand deliver a letter like that, especially not with a hostage in tow. Shouldn't really say shit like this on YouTube, but it's kind of slanderous and libelous. But if it gets taken down or I get asked to delete it, then I will. But yeah, they swapped the footage basically. And have a look at all the files in this folder. This isn't all about stuff that happened just after the tile had been laid. And nobody could identify who it was who was trying to section me, and I found the crisis team and the got some calls from withheld numbers and blah blah blah. That's somewhere. It's called Murdered. I don't think I ever finished editing this. I was just reading it, but yeah, go into Google Drive and let's have a look. crime stuff. Police stuff, unshared. Here's the shared folder. So this shared folder, I'll put a link in the description to this shared folder. You can read the write-up about what happened. You can look at the videos and the photos. These videos, these letter visit videos, were the ones that were hoaxed. So this is a hoaxed video, basically. I used to barricade my door. I had the thing nailed over it so they couldn't torch my house by putting shit through my letterbox. I was very paranoid at the time. But this is not the same footage that I captured on the 19th of March 2019 after I just got out of hospital in Signet. Yeah, this was just the footage that appeared on my USB sticks on Haytor Ward. One on the 19th and then another one on the 20th. Where they've done the same thing, but you can see on the date it says it's the 20th, and there isn't anybody with a red wig on crying in a police uniform who looks just like my sister, who would have, you know, that file would have gone viral if I'd put it into Connor 2019. Nothing to be sort of associated with COVID-19, which sounds just like Connor 2019, doesn't it? But yeah, there is a couple of videos for today. I think I've got a paranoid delusion that my sister Lily's been repeatedly abused along with her children at various Signet hospitals and abducted by Devon and Cornwall police, and they've all been in cahoots trying to cover it up because they don't want to get caught. And Lily's just deleted all of her Instagram posts, loads of which were photoshopped images to make it look like she was somewhere else, when in truth she was actually at a different location, having a really horrible time and going through hell, pretty much. But if you see PC Dudley, tell him to turn himself in, and if you see Lily, tell her that I send her all my love and I'm really sorry about everything that's happened. Cheers.